Hi, and thanks for joining. Today's video is going to be 15 ways that we increase our eBay sales. If you're new here, my name is Wendy and this is Nina's Jewels. My husband and I buy things at places like thrift stores, garage sales, anywhere we can find things to sell online and flip for a profit. If that's content you're interested in, you're in the right place. The first way that we increase our eBay sales is to list consistently. The eBay algorithm likes activity, so the more often you can list, the better. The main thing is that you don't want to go weeks in between listing things. You want to list as often as you can and just keep feeding that eBay algorithm. If listing every day is not possible with your schedule, like it's not possible for mine, there is an option that eBay offers for free now, and this used to be a paid option, and that is to schedule your listings ahead of time. So what we do is we'll have a big power listing session, and then I will schedule listings to deploy at a later date so that I don't have to worry about actually working every single day to get listings up. It's something that we can schedule ahead of time, rest easy, and make sure that we're continuing to feed that eBay algorithm. The number 2 way that we increase our eBay sales is to take awesome pictures. It's so easy now because you don't have to invest in an expensive camera. Most phones are equipped with really high quality cameras that take pictures that look great on reselling sites. And there's YouTube videos and channels that are devoted exclusively to teaching you how to use your devices and use all the tips and tricks that are available on your device to get the best photos that you possibly can. So take advantage of all of the free information that is out there and available. eBay allows for 24 photos per listing and use as many of those as you can. You don't always have to use all of them, but make sure that you're taking as many pictures as you possibly can and including as much information as possible right in those listing photos, because that's the place where the buyers are most likely to look. So we always make sure and take pictures of every side of the item, the top, the front, the back, the sides, the bottom. We always take close-ups of any flaws. We usually take pictures of items on a measuring tape or a ruler or something that shows the size of the item, especially for clothing. And we always take pictures of the brand tags or the branding on the item that shows all of the information. If it's clothing, we take a picture of all of the tags that show the fiber content, the washing instructions, anything like that that we can take a photo of that will help the buyer understand exactly what your item is. Include that in the photos. You definitely don't want to be one of those sellers that just throws your item on the floor in your bedroom and takes a picture of it on your carpet right there next to all of your dirty clothes and an empty food container, because that puts off a really bad image to the buyer. They are going to lack faith in you as a seller that they're going to get a clean, well taken care of item, and it's just going to probably turn off a lot of buyers. So definitely make sure that you are taking a photo of your item in bright light and using a background that is appropriate for your item and pleasing to the buyer. There are some tips and tricks to make that a lot easier now. You don't have to have a professional photo set up. All you need is, for example, your iPhone or your device and bright light. So you can take a photo of your item actually on the floor of your bedroom with your dirty clothes strewn around it. And then you can use apps that are available like Photo Room that just remove that background right away. And there's lots of people that say that Google search images work better with white backgrounds. So lots of people just use a solid white background, but now there are lots of different options like AI backgrounds. And although it's not something that we've tried, it's something that we've heard from other sellers that it is resulting in sales and more interest from buyers because it makes your item stand out. So a perfect example of this is if you have snow boots, you can take a picture of those in your house in bright light, get good photos of it, and for the first photo you can put an AI background of a winter snow scene. for that, and that might make your item really stand out to buyers. Another example that we recently heard of from our friend Philly Flipper is he said that he sold a pair of sunglasses using an AI background of a beach scene, and he's pretty sure that that's what made the sale tip over. So definitely consider using those AI backgrounds. It's something that we'll consider probably at a later time, but it is something that I'm hearing a lot of talk about. The number 3 way to increase your sales on eBay is to make sure that your title stands out. One thing that we don't do is we don't use sell similar from other existing listings, and I'll explain why I've opted not to do that. Because sometimes when I'm researching an item and I'm scrolling through the search results on eBay, I will see listing after listing after listing that have obviously done sell similar, and they all have the exact same title. So you want your title to stand out amongst all of that competition. So I usually create a brand new listing, and I use our personal store template that we use for our listings, which is very simple. But I start a brand new listing and I take the item and I type in all of the information that's available on the packaging, all of the information that I personally would want to know about the item, and I include as much of that information as possible in the title. Another thing I always do is if the item has any defects or flaws or information that the customer is definitely going to want up front, like if it has a stain on it, I will include something in the title that alludes to that if I have room for it. So I'll either write the word read, meaning that they should go in and read the description. I'll include the word flaw, or if I have room, I will include what the specific defect is, like stained or torn or something like that. So you definitely want to include as much information right there in the title as possible. Then once I get all of the information into my title, I'll go in and I'll search for that item on eBay. I will look at both listed items and sold items, paying close attention to keywords that I might not necessarily have thought of, things that I've noticed that a lot of the sold items, maybe consistently I see that in the sold items there's one keyword that all of those listings have in common that might be the reason why those are selling over other ones. And so at that point I'll go in and I'll tweak my title with those words and that information that I've gleaned from my comping and make my title even better. Another thing that you don't want to do is put really important words at the end of your title. You definitely want those at the beginning, because on some platforms when users are scrolling through the listings, the end of the title is actually cut off, so they can only see maybe the first half or the first 3/4 of your title. And so you don't want those important words at the very end where buyers can't see them unless they actually open up the listing. Basically, I want my title to stand out as much as possible amongst all of the competition and have all of the words that a buyer is going to search for. So really think about what keywords the buyer is going to use to search for your item and make sure you include those. The number 4 way that we increase our sales on eBay is to be descriptive. You want to use photos. You want to include information in the item details, in the item condition, in the item description. Include information everywhere and as much information as possible. Think through literally everything a buyer is going to want to know about your item and include that in your listing. I promise you it's going to save you time later on, because if a buyer has a question about your item and it's not included in your listing, and it could have easily been included in your listing, they are just probably going to move on from your listing and go to somebody else's who has that information available in it. So you want to save yourself the time and trouble of having to answer questions, having to pull inventory out of your stock to check it, and include as much information as possible right there in your listing. Also, just like I said earlier, I recommend including as much information as possible right there in the photos and in the title, because those are the 2 places the buyers are most likely to look. And that brings me to the number 5 way that we increase sales on eBay, and that is to provide excellent customer service. We go above and beyond on customer service if possible. I try to answer every eBay question as professionally as possible. You definitely don't want a buyer to reach out to you with a question and make them wait for 2 days. They're more than likely going to move on to another listing. And if they do ask a question and it's maybe an annoying question, you definitely don't want to have any emotion in your response or be curt or even type it in a way that could be misconstrued when the buyer reads it. So if the buyer asks me a question like, does the item have stains? I know that that information is already included in my listing and that had they read the listing, they can get that information. So I want my answer to be free of any irritation and not have the buyer feel that irritation at all. So I would never answer that question with just the word yes, or I would never answer that question with the information that you're looking for is available in the listing. Now that's not saying that I haven't answered questions that way before. I definitely have. I've let my irritation get the best of me. But I've learned over time that the more thorough I can be in answering questions with buyers and the more patient I can be with answering annoying questions, the more likely it is to result in a sale. So if the buyer asked me a question like, is it free of stains? Here's an example of the way that we would answer that question. We would say something like, thanks for your interest in our item. And that's one thing I would always recommend in responding to buyers is to thank them in some way. So we would say, thanks for your interest in our item. Our team of 2 thoroughly inspects each item. Any defects or flaws will be noted in the listing. And I might go above and beyond and let them know that I checked the item in my inventory, but really only if I did. I'm not intentionally going to lie to a buyer. But then I would go on to say, I double checked this listing and we believe this item to be free of stains. Should you have any issues with your purchase, we offer a generous return policy so you can buy with confidence. So in our case, we would say we offer free returns so you can buy with confidence because that is our return policy, but you want to include information about what your return policy is, basically to give the buyer as much confidence about buying from you as possible. They're going to know that your customer service doesn't end at the sale, that it will continue if they have any issues, and they can expect their purchase to be hassle-free no matter what the result. Another thing that is a really great tip that we do is if the buyer asks a question that you thought, wow, that's a pretty good question, I probably should have included that information in my listing. There is an option to include the answer to that question actually in your listing. So it's just a simple checkbox when you're responding to a buyer. You just toggle that on and your answer will be included in a frequently asked questions section of your listing so that if a buyer comes along later and has that question, it's available right there in your listing. And the number 6 way that we increase our eBay sales is to maintain our top-rated seller status. You definitely want to be a top-rated seller, and there's many reasons why. So first of all, I'll go over the things that you have to do to become qualified as an eBay top-rated seller. To become a top-rated seller, you have to meet the following guidelines. You have to have an eBay account that's been active for at least 90 days, have 100 or more transactions, and $1,000 in sales during the last 12 months with U.S. buyers. Have a defect rate of less than or equal to 0.5% with 3 or fewer defects from unique buyers. Have cases closed without seller resolution less than or equal to 0.3% and 2 or fewer cases. Have a late shipment rate less than or equal to 3% and 5 or fewer late shipments. And have tracking uploaded within your stated handling time and carrier validation for 95% of transactions to U.S. buyers. So if you are providing excellent customer service, if you're doing everything that you're supposed to on eBay, it's pretty easy to maintain your top-rated seller status. However, we have lost ours for a 3-month period, and I'll explain at the end of this video exactly how that happened and how you can avoid it. But all the rest of the time that we've been selling on eBay, we have been a top-rated seller, and there are lots of reasons to maintain that status that are reasons that will help you save money even and give you access to even more benefits from eBay. So the benefits of being a top-rated seller, the biggest one is enhanced visibility in eBay search results. So basically what that means is that top-rated sellers are going to move up the search results ahead of sellers who are not top-rated sellers. So that's huge. You definitely want your item to be as visible as possible in search results. One note though, to qualify for that, you must have a 30-day or longer return policy. So if you have a 15-day return policy, you won't qualify for that benefit from being a top-rated seller. Another benefit of being a top-rated seller is you get benefits for false INAD claims. And if you've been a seller on eBay for a while, you've probably gotten a false INAD claim, that is item not as described. And buyers usually will do a false INAD claim if they have buyer paid returns and they're just trying to get a free return. So I will say that it's really hard for sellers to prove that an item is false INAD, but if it does go in the seller's favor, there are benefits to that if you're a top rated seller. Essentially, eBay will protect buyers from that by reimbursing your return shipping label cost up to $6 per return. So if you can prove to eBay that it was a false INAD claim, they'll reimburse you for $6 of your return shipping. The other thing that's huge with that is that they'll remove any negative or neutral feedback that the buyer might leave you. Another huge benefit of being a top-rated seller is you gain access to a refund deduction option. So this is great for buyers who return damaged items, or you've sold something new in package and the buyer returns it open. So that definitely decreases the value of the item. You can't sell it at all maybe, or you can only sell it for a reduced amount. It just devalues the item. So in that case, eBay would allow you to only partially refund the buyer up to 50% of their original cost. Another example would be a buyer that purchased something that is delicate or breakable and they decided to return it. They didn't pack it well for the return shipment and it arrived back to you broken because of poor packing. This has actually happened to us. So top-rated sellers are eligible to refund a partial refund up to 50% from the buyer. And eBay will protect sellers from neutral or negative feedback in cases like this as well. So those are huge reasons to be a top-rated seller. Those are protections and benefits that definitely will help you out. And this brings me to the number 7 way that you can increase your eBay sales, and that is to handle negative feedback. I promise you, even if you haven't gotten a negative feedback yet, there will come a time when you have to deal with either neutral or negative feedback. And it always comes from an item that you're just not expecting. That's been our experience. And there's ways that you can either resolve it, have it removed, or respond to it. So the first thing that we always try is we request a revision from the buyer. So we would reach out to the buyer and say something like, I'm so sorry you were disappointed with your item. Negative feedback really hurts small eBay sellers like us, so we would be happy to resolve your issue for you, and we would also appreciate it if you would consider revising your feedback. And then we might go on to say that we offer 30-day returns or whatever our return policy is, but one thing that you can't do is a quid pro quo scenario where you say we will give you a refund if you remove your feedback. The buyer has to make that decision to remove the feedback based on the customer service that you provide, so offer those things to them. You may end up having to give a refund and they might not change their feedback, but you've done everything that you could possibly do to make the buyer happy. So if that doesn't work, the next thing that we will do is request a feedback removal from eBay. There is an option on the eBay site for you to go in and request feedback removal. You state your case to eBay on why you think it should be removed. Maybe you have reached out to the buyer, you offer free 30-day returns, the buyer did not take advantage of that, you tried to resolve the issue with the buyer and they were non-responsive. That might be an example of where eBay would step in and say you did everything that you possibly could do to make this buyer happy, and so we'll remove the feedback. Sometimes that works through that form and sometimes it doesn't, but I will say if that doesn't work, we usually take it a step further and we will reach out to eBay customer service either through chat or through a phone call or through eBay for Business. And sometimes we've had to reach out multiple times. It's just about finding the right rep who will really listen to your story and take into consideration all of the things that you have done. But if you've reached out multiple times and you haven't been successful, the third and final thing that you can do is to respond directly to the feedback on your feedback page. This is the worst case scenario on negative feedback, but you definitely want any buyers who are looking through your feedback to see at a glance that your customer service doesn't end when you ship the item. You will continue to provide customer service if the buyer has an issue. And I would recommend responding to negative feedback in a professional, factual way that just does not include any emotion. So when it comes to neutral feedback, I actually recommend just not responding to that at all. You can try to request a revision, you can try to request a feedback removal, but if those two options don't work, I would not respond to it at all on the feedback page because I think that draws more attention to it. That's just my personal opinion. Some people respond to it, and it definitely won't look bad for you to respond to it. I just think it draws less attention to it to not respond at all. But I do recommend responding to negative feedback, and I'm going to give you some examples. I searched through feedback of other buyers and sellers for about an hour to find these, but I think I found a couple of good examples of really professional responses, and I found an example of a not so professional response. It was hard to find an example of a not so professional response, so that's saying some good things about eBay sellers out there. Most eBay sellers respond professionally. So the first response that I found, the buyer stated in their negative feedback, "When I received the product, the condition of the product is so different from the picture." And the seller responded in a very professional way, I thought. They gave the facts of what happened, and they showed that they have good customer service. They said, "Asked multiple times for verification of this and no response from the buyer. Buyer received exactly what was posted and made no contact with me to attempt to resolve any issue." So I think that says what it needs to, and it says to other buyers, we'll help you out, but all you have to do is reach out to us. The next example I found of a good response was, the negative feedback states, "I have never received my item, 5 exclamation points." And the seller responded to customer with reship resolution. Did not hear back from customer. Transaction was refunded. This response gives future buyers a lot of information. They see that the seller was willing to ship out another item to resolve it with the customer, and that they actually ultimately refunded the customer despite receiving the negative feedback. And this says this seller has good customer service and they'll help you out. So an example of a not so good response is this one. The buyer said, "Rip off, ... 4 exclamation points. The bottle was filled with a different cologne. Shame on you." So I admit it would probably be hard not to respond to that emotionally, and my initial response would be emotion, but you need to step back and not respond immediately and think about a very professional response to that, because once you respond to it, it is on your feedback page and buyers will be able to see that for a year. So this seller said, "Absolutely ridiculous claim. Buyer buys discontinued tiny cologne for $8. Likely doesn't smell the same as he remembers. Or product could have went bad due to age. Offered return for refund, no reply. Likely fishing for refund but trying to keep product. Buyer may need psychiatrist with accusations like this. I've sold 1,000 of items, wow, 1,000 of items, with near 100%, never ever had a claim so insane." This seller was so close to getting it right. Had they just said, "Offered return for refund, no reply," which is in the middle of their otherwise very emotional response, that little statement would have been enough to say what they needed to say for future buyers. But they went on to say that the buyer needed a psychiatrist and that they were insane. Lots of things that just give future buyers a bad taste in their mouth about how this seller responds emotionally. So this is not a response I would recommend. So the number 8 way that we increase our sales on eBay is to offer 1-day or same-day shipping. Now, I'm not saying that everybody has to do this, but I will say that buyers have been conditioned by sites like Amazon to get their items really, really fast. So the quicker that you can turn around shipping and the shorter handling time that you can have on your item, you will have happier buyers for sure. Definitely do what you're most comfortable with, because if you don't follow through on your promises up front, that will affect you through defects on your account, and those are ways that you can lose your top rated seller status. So if it's just not feasible for you to ship items in same or 1 day, or maybe you need your handling to be 3 days, go ahead and do that. Do what is most reasonable for you and what you can follow through on. But if it is possible for you to offer free or 1-day shipping, there's lots of benefits to that. Number 1 is buyers are happy. One thing that I see in a lot of our positive feedback is buyers remarking on how short our shipping time was. That is definitely something that buyers remember. It's the last experience that they've had with you, And if they've had to wait a really, really long time for something, they're definitely going to get more and more impatient. And then if there's a problem with the item when the item arrives, I would say that a long shipping time is more likely to result in a negative feedback. However, if they get their item super fast, they are just going to be more likely to be happy with the item, even if there is a tiny issue with it. And that brings me to our number one way that you can increase eBay sales, and that is to offer free returns. Now, I know a lot of you are like, when I say that, because a lot of people only offer buyer paid returns. And we did that for a really, really long time. And we thought there's no way that we would pay for returns. Offering free returns is going to increase our returns. We're going to have to pay so much money out of pocket to deal with returns. But I'll say that offering them has definitely changed my mind. And I'll tell you what our experience is, and then you do what's best for you. But this has been our experience. Number one, to qualify as a top rated plus seller, you have to offer 1-day or same-day shipping and free seller paid returns. And there's lots of benefits to being a top rated plus seller. So offering those two things combined, you will not only get a seal displayed on your listing right there when people are scrolling through search results, it will show a seal on your listing that says top rated plus seller, so buyers know that you offer 1 or same day shipping and free returns. But the main reason is you get a 10% discount in final value fees. And I will say that 10% discount in final value fees has worked itself out for the number of items that we sell. We've saved more on the 10% discount on final value fees than we've paid out and having to pay for returns. So it has definitely been worth it for us. And we have not noticed a significant increase at all in the number of returns that we've gotten. We're getting around the same amount of returns that we would typically get, which is around 1.5% to 2% depending on the time of year. But one thing that it has reduced drastically for us is the number of false item not as described claims that we've gotten. Because buyers know that if they have the option of a buyer paid return, and that's the only option that they have with the seller, one way for them to get free returns is to claim the item was not as described, because the seller always has to pay for the return if the item is not as described. So some buyers will misuse that and file a false INAD claim in order to get a free return. They're going to get a free return one way or another. You are much more likely to have less defects on your account, and in our experience, get positive feedback when you might have thought that you would have gotten negative feedback. If you provide top-notch customer service and every element of the buyer dealing with you is hassle-free. In fact, we had an issue where a buyer came in really hot on a tank top that they had purchased, and they said that it was not sized correctly, that they purchased a large and what they got was more like a small. And this was despite the fact that we had measurements in our listing. We were very thorough about it. We can't control the way manufacturers cut items and how they're sized. So we always provide really detailed measurements and all of that information in our listing like we talked about earlier. But this buyer came in super hot and angry, and they were telling us that it was missized and they wanted to return it. And I can typically diffuse a buyer like that super quickly by just saying, I'm so sorry there was an issue with your item. We offer free returns. Simply open a return on eBay and you will be provided with a free shipping label to return your item back to us. No problem. That usually diffuses the situation, and with that particular buyer that I'm talking about, we ended up getting really nice positive feedback about how excellent our customer service was and how their return was hassle-free. So that worked out really well for us. The number 10 way that we increase sales on eBay is to turn on best offer. Now, I know some people price their items so that buyers who search for items with the lowest price first, this option might not work well for you, but there is that element of buyers wanting to feel like they got a discount on something. That's something that we've been trained to look for when shopping in department stores. You're always looking for those sales. You always want to feel like you got a discount. And offering best offer can provide that experience to your buyer. So what we do is we decide on how much we want to get on the item, and we inflate our sales price enough to be a fair price for the buyer either way, but allow us some flexibility on the price to be able to have buyers make offers and still make some profit on the item. That gives buyers who want to have that, I saved this much money or I got a discount feeling, that experience in purchasing your item on best offer. It gives the buyers the win, essentially. And that brings me to my number 11 way that we increase our eBay sales, and that is to send offers to watchers. You don't even have to have best offer turned on to use this feature. eBay offers it to sellers. When buyers put an item in their cart or they watch your item, you'll get a notification that you can send that buyer an offer. And so you can leave all of your items with best offer turned off and still make offers to buyers. We use this all the time. I will send offers to buyers immediately when they become available because that's the moment that the buyer is looking at your item and that's the moment that they're in the buying mood. So I want to strike while the iron is hot in that instance, but some people wait till their offers to buyers stack up and then they send out a big blast of 10% off or whatever percentage they decide to offer off to buyers, and that will result in sales. Some people only send offers to buyers on items that have been in their inventory for a really long time. There's lots of different ways to do it and lots of different ways to use offers to buyers, but it can be a really powerful tool for making sales. The number 12 way that we increase our sales on eBay is to promote at a higher rate. Now I know there's lots of people who do not agree with promoting items on eBay, and if you don't want to promote your items, I'm not telling you you have to. I'm just saying it's a tool that you can use to increase sales. We think of it as a cost of doing business and money that we're spending on advertising the item. So it's something that works really well for us, but there is no need to do it. You can still make sales on eBay if you want to not promote at all or promote at a low rate. So the way we do it is that we don't promote all of our items. If we have an item that we know is going to sell, like a particular magic card, we will not promote that item because we know there's buyers for that whether we promote it or not. But most of our items we do promote at a low rate. And that's just making us competitive with all of the other people that are promoting and keeping our listings in some of the upper parts of the search results. But one thing that we recently tried, and we made a video about it, which I'll link right up here, or you can find it in the description box below. But recently we had a bunch of inventory that had just been sitting for way longer than we wanted, and we were really trying to get creative on how to move that old inventory. And what we decided to do was to promote items that had been in our store for 1 year or more, and we promoted those at the eBay recommended rate, capping it at 10%. And it doubled our sales the first month, and we are still getting lots of sales of items that we're promoting more heavily. So that's something that has worked out so well for us. We have made a lot of money by adding that. We are making money on inventory that would not have sold otherwise, in my opinion. And it's giving us more space to bring in new inventory that would make us more money. And so while it is frustrating that we're having to give eBay a larger percentage of our promoted listings, we're earning more money on them in the long run, and we weren't earning any profit on them when they were just sitting in our inventory room not selling. So it's definitely something to consider and a way that you can increase your sales of old inventory. And the 13th way that we increase our sales on eBay is to use promotions. Now this is different than eBay standard promoted items. This is an option that is available only to store subscribers, so you do have to have a store. But there are ways that you can go into the promotions section and offer markdown sales, which would be just a percentage off or a dollar amount off of your items. And the other thing that's available is coupons. So these are the two biggest things that we use in this section. Every month we pick a different category of, maybe I've noticed that we have a lot of VHS stacking up. So for the month of January, I'm going to offer a 15% off discount to any item in that category, and that goes for the whole month of January. We will definitely see an increase of sales, especially on markdown sales. People just like to look at an item and see that it has a discount. They feel like they're getting the win. They feel like they're saving money. And we always see an increase in sales in whatever category we're running a markdown sale on each month. So that's something that I change out every month. I choose a different category and I do a markdown sale on that category. Another thing I do each month is I do a coupon on a different category each month. The coupons haven't been as successful for us, but they are successful, and we do see an increase in sales when buyers apply a coupon. So I'll maybe see that we have a lot of books stacking up, and I might decide to offer a 5% off coupon that buyers can apply to their book purchase from us. So that is something that also works for us, though like I mentioned, not as successful as a markdown sale. And the third option that we do is create a volume pricing promotion. So you can do this lots of different ways. You can say just buy any 3 items in our store and it'll give you an additional 10% off. Or if you have a multi-quantity listing, you can say to buyers, if you buy 2 or more of these items, you get a percentage off. 3 or more of these items, you get a higher percentage off, and it can tier up. We use this on multi-quantity listings, and we use this on cards, on trading cards. This is a big way that we can encourage buyers to purchase more trading cards, which is a low profit margin item for us. So we say that if buyers purchase 2 or more cards, they get 5% off. If they purchase 3 or more cards, they get 8% off. And if they purchase 4 or more cards, they get 10% off. So this will sometimes result in sales of like 10 or 20 cards for us. That doesn't happen very often, but it does encourage buyers to buy more and save more. So it's something to consider. And you can set those percentages at any amount that you want to. That's just the lowest you can go, and we keep that low on trading cards because it's not a high profit margin item for us. And the 14th way that we increase our sales on eBay is actually something that I recently learned from watching the channel Shed Flip. So Lonnie found out this little trick that you can do, and it's something that we have incorporated. And that is to create a store newsletter. Now I will say it was really hard for me to find the store newsletter, so I will show you guys on the screen where exactly to find that. But store subscribers, again, you have to be a store subscriber. You can send newsletters to all of your store followers or selected groups of buyers. For example, everybody who bought clothing, you can send them a newsletter saying, you know, we're running a promotion on clothes this month. And that might bring repeat buyers back to your store. But the way we're using it currently is we are sending a weekly newsletter promoting our new items. We're sending that to all of our store subscribers. Another thing that I've looked at and considered doing is notifying all of our subscribers about our monthly markdowns or our monthly coupons. So there's lots of different ways that you can use those newsletters to reach out to people who have already expressed an interest in your store and bring some repeat traffic back to your store. And the last and final way that we increase sales on eBay is to do a trick for the algorithm. You may be aware that you can go in and select all of your items and end those and relist them, and that will refresh them in the eBay system. And that is helpful, but a way that you can kind of trick the eBay algorithm into thinking that you have new listings is to actually end listings and then redo them as sell similar. So instead of doing relist, you're taking it one more step and making eBay think that your items are brand new in the system. And that goes back to the number one item that was on my list, and that is having consistent listings on eBay. So maybe you don't have fresh inventory and you can use the end item and sell similar trick to trick the eBay algorithm into thinking that you have new listings even when maybe you haven't had time to source. But I will say that you should do this with caution, because this is exactly how we lost our top rated seller status. As I mentioned earlier, we do a lot of card sales, and a lot of those trading cards we do with a multi-variation listing, meaning there's a drop-down box and we're promoting the set of baseball cards, and then we have a drop-down box and buyers can choose which card from that set they want to purchase. So we found out the hard way that you absolutely should not do end item and sell similar on multi-variation listings. And the reason why is that when you end the item and do sell similar, eBay automatically resets the quantities of all of those variations back to the original quantity that it was when you first listed it. So what happened to us is we did that, unbeknownst to us, it had reset all of those quantities, and a bunch of people came in and bought cards that we no longer had in stock because our listing said that it was in stock. And we got multiple defects from having that happen and actually lost our top rated seller status for 3 months because of that issue. So definitely learn from our mistake and do not do end item and sell similar on anything that has a multi-variation listing. But that wraps up the 15 ways that we increase our sales on eBay. You can pick and choose which things work for you or try them all. Let me know in the comments below what your number one way is to increase your sales on eBay. And if you found anything informative, helpful, educational, or entertaining about this video, let us know by hitting the like button. It also lets YouTube know that we have good content, and that really helps us out. And if you're new here, or even if you've been watching us for a while and have never hit that subscribe button, consider hitting that subscribe button with the notification bell on. It is free to you, and you will be kept informed of all of our future content, and you can check out videos like this. Thanks so much for watching, and we will catch you on the flip side.